And it means, therefore, you are not part of the solution providers. So you traveled all that way from your shags to Moi University, to KU, to UON. The community made sure you remain there, only for you to be given a torch, kumulikia wengine. After you finish, you retreat to where they are and become again part of that problem. Oh, natafuta kazi sijapata. I believe we go through that process, not to go back as part of the problem, but to use the experiences and the exposure to be part of the solution. And our economy here in Kenya and Africa, one of the problems that we don't have, if it is, I don't know how to phrase it, one of the issues we don't struggle in having is unemployed people. We have no problem with that. We have it in abundance. What we don't have is the solution of how this labor, which is already polished and learned, can take part in the growth of the economy. And I believe that solution lies in business. That solution lies in entrepreneurship. It does not lie in adding into the numbers. And that is why, as I talked about that topic today, I'm talking about it because I believe in it. And not just in words. Even me, when I graduated from KU, and I called, that is my undergrad, and I called for a lunch to celebrate my degree later in that day, the prayer I had for my parents and the people who attended is when they go back to Muranga, niliwaambia, you go pray for me not to get a job. Because I knew when I get into that trap of getting a job, then from there, I start living in fulfilling other people's dreams, not my own. And I knew the struggle will be intense, but it will be short while. And for sure it was. Because you are here, you've graduated, your former classmates are working with Deloitte, others with PwC, others with the Equity Bank, and you are here just saying, I am a businessman, doing no business by then, or no notable business. So it's ni kichaka, unaigia kwa kichaka. You get into a forest which is very dim and in which is very dark. But you must be determined that you cannot look for an easy solution that is short-lived. Because I knew, just like all of us here, if you desire to live a life that is above average, it is very highly unlikely you'll do it while still employed. Because whatever amount of salary you may be paid, whatever math you try to do with it, it can't get you out of the low-level equilibrium. You know, life, many times you get trapped here. Okay, we become fast among equals. What do I mean? You are here in this hall. Even the person who is saying, I am now ahead of others, it is within a low-level equilibrium. An equilibrium where you're already trapped in some ceiling. We must break that ceiling, get out of that low-level equilibrium, and go to the next one. So that when you truly are aiming high, you are not aiming high while still umefunikwa. You already past that. You go past the ceiling. I am yet to see whether that is possible through employment. Now, let me talk a few things here. Because I imagine, even those who are not in business, we are aiming one day to be in it. When you study all the businesses that we know, the bigger ones, from Samsung to Apple to Microsoft, you realize the only business that withstands the test of time is a dynamic business. You'll not get a business, they tell you, we started off making rubber 100 years ago, we are still making rubber, unless you are Coca-Cola or in the food industry, which sometimes there is nothing much you can do about food, because food remains food. But if you look at many companies, and especially those which are not in the food business, how they started, a person who got it 60 years ago will not recognize it today. A company like Samsung, I use Samsung because I am a fan of the Asian economic transformation. In fact, the only reason I use Samsung, other than the American phones, is that reason. That I want to support an economy that was like us in our parents' generation. That by the time my father was a young man, by then my father, an equivalent of South Korea, were at the same level in GDP per capita. Can you imagine? Now I am here as his son. Now an equivalent of me there is more than 25 times richer on average. So I was talking about Samsung before I diverted to the economics of the Asian tigers. It Samsung started off as what? A trading company. Actually doing what? It was selling dried fish, samaki, dried fish. But how do these companies then maintain the fact that they withstand time? After doing all that, they make money. That money, the money you get in your business, should not be your possession. The money you make in your business should be capital for something with a higher technological value. So you make money out of dried fish. What is the technology required there? Just fish, fishing. You never manufacture fish. You just fish it. So fishing, drying. You also don't manufacture sun or the sun. So that is a low-level kind of technology product. So they use that profit. They reform the company to become something else. And over comes to TVs. First comes to radios, comes to TVs. From TVs to flat screen TVs to now phones, now going to AI. If they remained as the same company that was started there, it will not even never have passed to be an example, to be given so many kilometers from where it was founded. Whatever business we are doing, we must not be stuck where we are. We must know that this business exists for a dynamic force. I make money here, but with my eye at the next product, which is most cases, have to have a higher barrier of entry, and therefore has to have a higher capital outlay, have to have a higher technological level of entry, so that you leave the low level kind of product making and then proceed higher. And that also continues with its own wider profit margins. The profit margin you make on a low level technology product is not the same you make when you're in a business with a higher barrier of entry, technologically and also capital-wise. And I hope those of us in business will learn to transform with time. And don't feel like you are over-diversifying by going higher technologically, because that is the only way you can safeguard your higher margins. Bharti, Airtel, the one you know now, it came to Zain, Airtel, all that now. That's an Indian company. Bharti was started in 1976. It was making parts of bicycles. The company we know today. I'm just talking about dynamism in business because it's important. You talk about a company like Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway is the one that is owned by Warren Buffett. Those people in investment area, no one does not know Warren Buffett in investments, because he's the father of that. Berkshire Hathaway is a company listed in the in America, of course, with over $1 trillion shillings in dollars net worth. It is started like 50-something years ago or so. By the time Warren Buffett was buying shares into Berkshire Hathaway, it was a company making textiles and garments. It was that kind of a company. Currently, as we talk today, it has transformed itself into an investment company with over 800 subsidiaries. Subsidiaries is a company where another company owns more than 51% of that company. More than 800. And hundreds more of investments in listed companies and non-listed companies. Most of the brands you know, including Bank of America, Berkshire Hathaway, at some point had investments there. Apple, even now, Berkshire Hathaway is the largest investor, ahead of even the founders of that technology company. Transformation. so that you don't trap yourself. Oh, you know, I am a carpenter, I have a workshop, fine. How much technology is needed in your trade? Because the low technology that is needed and the lower the capital outlay needed, then it is a porous business. Anyone can enter, anyone can exit. And that kind of business, when you have capital, you need to advance to another business that has some semblance of barriers of entry, so that not everyone can do it. Why? Because the capital you have, not everyone has it. The technology which you can afford, not everyone who has it. So why are you doing a small margin business, yet you have the capacity to go to a higher barrier of entry kind of business? Let me talk. I prepared something because I needed to talk about a few things also directly. There is a day I had my friends, I was hosting them, and we had a chat about business. It is actually less than a week ago. And one of the friends told me that they want to join or they want to venture into agribusiness, into agriculture. Agriculture. Then we talked over a cup of tea, not even a cup, maybe a pot of tea. It was more than a cup. Then something profound came up. As we think about business, do you realize many of us don't think deeper than the superficial? Just don't even think about your neighbor, think about yourself. Do you realize many times we talk about venturing into a business, we also don't want to get tired thinking. We want to do a business for various reasons. One, to make a product which I can sell to my church members, on my fellow Rotarians. They sympathize with me and they buy my product. That's one of the reasons. Secondly, I met this friend of mine in my club, and he's doing agriculture, so I also want to do agriculture. I met my former classmate in the university, and they are doing very well in selling cars from Japan. So I want to sell cars from today. By the way, acheni kujifanya sophisticated. But just look inside of yourself. Try to think about any business idea you've ever thought of. Then you see, where was the source of that business idea? Try to think. Does anyone want to try? Yes. Which was it? Which business? A what? Aha. Clap for her. Anyone else who do want to try? In fact, you've given me one of the points that I want to deliver. Yes, my sister. Leaders. Viongozi. So, Leaders Manufacturing Company. Very good. Another one? You must be one, I can see. Anyone who wants to try? I want us to engage. Anyone? Anyone? Just anyone in business would or have ever thought. You must not be in business. You have ever thought about a business. Quill. Huyo wa Quill tutamuita tukimaliza. Anaweza haribu mkutano. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone? Yes, my brother. Prayers. Nearly. Hiking. Hiking business. Kuja, my brother. Just come. Yeah. I'll not. I can see even the logo is here. Anyone else who want to try? Anyone? Just help me to deliver this point. Anyone? in business you have ever thought about business? Which business? Bas Kuja. I actually wanted that. That's the one I wanted. Yeah, you can go. By the way, you can go. Even when I was coming here, I knew all my examples will be here. Now, what are you doing in dairy farming?
Well, very interesting question. What am I doing? I saw an image of another dairy farmer and I picked it up, tried it, I'm struggling. I am now trying to renovate it. Yeah.
Don't even go. Now, this is not a political meeting, is it? It is a business to help each other, including myself. That is exactly the same discussion I had when I was talking in that meeting I'm talking about. And I want us to be sequential. My brother is in dairy farming. Got it from a friend, because you can't get it from an enemy. From a friend. Now he's doing it. Has been struggling, but out of that struggle, he's trying to remodel it. That is it. Do you know something? As we do business, and this, if you forget about anything else we talk about this evening, you remember about this. If you think about business, don't think about business in abstract. Think about business by following and studying two things: supply chain and value chain. You remember those two things. Supply chain, that's why I said that my sister there captured what I needed, because if you noted her statement, she said from here to here. That's the point I wanted, from here to here. Now, agribusiness or agriculture, whatever name you want to call it. My brother is here so that you look at him as a lesson. In a good manner. Because, take for example agriculture. What is agriculture? We confuse agriculture. What we do is farming. Farming accounts for only 25% of agriculture. There are many value chains within agriculture. There is farming, which constitutes inputs and the labor and the land and the tilling. All that is farming. Then, depending on where you are adding value, there is transportation. There is logistics. There is warehousing. There is packaging. There is blending. There is brokerage. There is retail. And before that, there is wholesale. Before you get into a plate, all those are value chains. All those are supply chains. Now, as you do business, my brother, the dairy that you are doing today, the point I want us to carry home is this. Don't do a business just because you heard somebody else is doing it. Do a business because you have engaged your mind also. If currently you are employed somewhere, you are earning a salary. Do you imagine you are paid by that bank you work for to think every day and work with your heart every day? So you are paid to engage your mind and the heart every single day, 6 days a week. And the other day you are left in one day where you can't think about anything else. It's about the same work on Monday. So, we never have time to even think. That is, I was trying to be diplomatic, but I'm just saying we don't use our mind correctly. Why? When you hear about dairy farming, think about how much money are you sinking there? 1 million, 500,000, 200,000, 50, 3 million is a lot of money. Where can you get 2 million shillings in 1 week? Not many places. So what am I trying to say? Why can't you take even a whole week to think? It sounds very funny, thinking. But we never do most of the time in business. Because we just copy. And then, tunasomea bele. Na kusomea bele ni kuchoma pesa. Na kuchoma pesa is actually losing money. So, When you think about agriculture, always think, where do I want to play? For example, in the entire chain of agriculture, my brother, you can see that's enough lesson now. Take his dairy. Dairy is what? Milk. There is a cow. There is milk. There is feeds. There is yogurt. There is mala. There is Kenyan market. There is export market. There is cheese. There is all that. Sitaki kumuuliza, but did you do that, my brother? And be honest.
So everything you've said is actually correct. I started a farm and I hadn't thought about the supply chain and value chain. So I brought in 23 cows from Githunguri, and then I realized that I don't have food. I should have brought the food first. So you start struggling on creating the food source, and it becomes another problem. Then you realize that you are selling, but you could get more on value addition. Then now you start buying equipment, but then you realize that you don't need to even lease land. You'd rather have your own land, because the food becomes too expensive. So everything you've said, I am the best example you can.
I think you are the guest speaker today, not me. because the lesson you've given us is precisely what I wanted. My brother, supposing you first thought first, would you have done things differently?
Definitely not. I would have thought about the specific place I want to go in. So right now, for example, I would rather grow hay and just sell hay, which is the food, and not do the cows. Secondly, I started without having invested in equipment. So for example, if you look at the plowing, the hay balers and all that, if I had my equipment, every time I used to lease in a baler and a shredder, it's like I was buying the supplier of that one equipment every time. It was more expensive to have it rather than having it. So I would invest in equipment and not grow the cows and do that. So those are the lessons.
You have finished my speech. If you are here and you are not learning anything, you know, it sounds very easy when you are hearing. It only sounds important when you have lost money and time. Now, study the value chains. You may realize whatever thing you want to do. Unataka kutengeneza mabati. You want to be in agriculture. First, ask yourself, agriculture in what? Plants, animals. Okay, 2. Which animals? Cows, goats, rabbits, chicken. Do you want to be in meat business? What meat? And you know, you have not yet invested anything because you're engaging your mind and just doing survey, which costs you nothing. Other than when you've already sunk your money and you're learning in the process, you become defensive. You know, when you invest money, you stop learning. You start being defensive. You start justifying why you did it. You know, I had to buy these cows. No, don't be defensive. Be like my brother here. So that you actually learn. Then what do you need to learn by seeking your money? So it's important you think supply chain, value chain. Why do you do that? You realize 2 things. Where you have higher volumes, but also where you have larger margins. For example, in dairy, anyone can own a cow, but not everyone can own a small cottage manufacturing company or value addition. My brother, by buying 23 cows, he had capacity to actually install his own brand of yogurt, his own brand of UHT milk. He had that capacity. And if we gave him the mic, because now he has learned the hard way, he would tell you there is more margin there than there is in owning 23 cows. Then it is important to study the value chain and supply chain early so that you know where are you fitting in for your own reason and for your own capacity. When you have capacity to play in a league where you have a higher margin, then why are you playing in a different league? And that league, I keep repeating, the league of higher margins is already secured by barrier of entry, nothing else. If what you are doing can be done by everyone, then it's not a niche market. A niche segment of the value chain is where you can play at a level where the barrier of entry is raised. iko ukuta, na kupanda hiyo ukuta inahitaji gazi, na hiyo gazi ni either ya capital or technology or the exposure you already have. So it is important, study the value chain. Second thing about the value chain, real estate. Now, and I'm using the ones I have had people openly say, mi nataka kuingia agriculture, nataka kuingia real estate. Okay, what is real estate? I'm still talking about value chain and supply chain. Don't recap the other discussion I had the other place. Let us be, my brother here is in real estate. What is actually real estate? What is it? You see, guys, what I'm talking about, value chain, supply chain. Real estate is what? Do you know how many areas you can play? Number one, you can be a developer. You can be a large seller and buyer. You can be an agent. You can be a tech person within real estate. You can be a manager of other people's businesses or establishments. You can be a supplier of construction of materials. It is a huge play. Now, let us take some subcategories. Now, you say, oh, I'm a developer. Developer of what? And why did you decide to go there? You can develop a flat. Then, as you develop a flat, where? My brothers and sisters, I'm asking you these questions because I know I'm one of you. We don't ask ourselves these questions. You build a flat because I was given a plot by my father. You build a flat because the circle I belong to was selling plots in Kitegera, so I bought. I am building a plot. Why? You know, in our local shopping center, there are no plots. Why are you building a plot? I am building one in Siaya because I come from there. You don't do business because you come from a certain place. You do business to make money. So let's go back to real estate. You say, I'm a developer. What are you developing? Or what can you develop? You can do a residential flat. Okay, where? All these questions must always be a flat. Where? I have a plot in Githurai. I have another one in Roiro. I have another one in Gong Road. Why are you developing in that specific place? You need to engage your mind and do some empirical, figure-based, data-based decision making. Higher. No, I'm building a commercial property. What is commercial to you? Shops? A mall? What is it? Why specifically that one? What else can you build? You can build actually a data center. The biggest force of real estate in the world will be in data centers. Why? AI uses 8 times energy or power that a generative AI like ChatGPT uses 8 times of energy than the normal search engines use. So what does that mean? Out of AI, the world is in need of data centers. That is why you see in the US, all the multi-billion companies, almost all, are investing in humongous data centers. My good people, that is still real estate. So whatever you are doing within real estate, why are you doing it? You need to ask yourself that question and provide answers. Within real estate, again, I'm an agent. Agent of what? Connecting a buyer and a seller. Why can't you be an agent of materials? Because an agent is an agent. Or a broker is a broker. Why must you always do land? How long does it take to actually close one transaction? Okay, you can play around margin. Oh, it's higher margin. Okay. How long actually does it take to close a large business? To sell one as a freelance agent? Ask yourself these questions. Now, there is something else you can do within real estate. A contractor is also within real estate. Contractor of what? Now, that is where I find it very amazing. We all know that being a contractor ni kujenga mawe. Most of us. Building works. Do you realize That is the lowest margin you get in construction. In constructing a house, the smallest margins are actually in brick and mortar. They are actually in building, where the contractors are. And you know contractors is a big name, eh? They drive big cars. But that is the lowest margin there is in construction. Now, when you are a contractor, we are still in real estate, not even roads or anywhere else. There is plumbing work. There is electrical works. There is interiors. Within interiors, there are subcategories. There is floorings. There is curtains. There is ceiling. Different category of people doing separate works. Now, where do you need to play? That is, I am igniting ourselves and our mind. So that when you say, I'm in real estate, don't just jump. Just do some analysis. Where can I actually catch in with margin? Somewhere that is less explored. All of us here have, those who have done some construction anywhere, including own house, know one thing. There are very few people who have been able to structure themselves as a plumbing company. That is experience everywhere. So you get an individual, you are always dealing with an individual plumber. I always see that as a very good business. I don't know why no one or not many people have thought about professionalizing that area alone. So that as you build a house, you may end up just doing plumbing, nothing else. And very high-tech. High-tech meaning very good quality job. Not very many people have structured themselves as such. Electrical works. There is the big electrical contractors, but there seems to be a gap in here. There seems to be a gap in here of electrical contractors who can deal with our problems, a non-house or a small flat or the other area. Now, I want to jump many things because some are related and go to one area. I'm still about thinking. Companies call for AGMs where people meet, but before the AGM, there are so many other preparatory meetings in companies. This sub-board meeting to check this and that and that. You are an institution, you as a businessman, because the biggest resource of entrepreneurship is the entrepreneurial instincts or mind. You as an institution, do you ever call for your own AGM? You. Not for your company, your own AGM. When do you sit down to actually think and track progress? You call for an AGM? Yes, this year has been this way. Kenya Power was releasing their NDINDI results today. So they are telling shareholders, this is what you've been able to achieve. Do you report to yourself what you have been able to achieve for the last quarter, for the last half of the year, for the last 1 year? Just sitting down, yes, this is my business. I think I am doing well, but when you do the math, you realize you're actually not doing as well. You do business, you touch so much money, but so much money is stuck in receivables. So you think you're doing a very good business, but you're actually offering service, you're not in business. There's a difference. You may be offering service, offering PA systems, offering MC jobs, but you're offering the service. You're not in business because all your money is stuck in receivables. Do you ever sit down to evaluate that? Those people who are in contractor, I mean, there is one business that I think is now being overtaken by events in Kenya. Contractors around government. Because it's a very subjective business. It relies on patronage. It relies on the person you know. Can you just try to see in your mind the biggest contractor you knew building roads in Kenya, and especially indigenous ones, you knew 20 years ago who are still in business or doing as well? So is there a better way to predict the future than by the past? So always when you're venturing into a business, I'm highlighting the ones I hear every time. Everyone is telling you, I want to be in real estate, agribusiness, nataka tender, so that we try to also think about other things we can do. Let me conclude by investments, because the time is up. Just investments. Watu wa biashara, whatever umechukua hapo, chukua. If you are not amenable to, maybe the next one will be now before you. Now, on investments, nimejump vitu kadhaa because I also don't want to tire you too much. When you are thinking about passive investments, you may have heard me talk about shares somewhere else, because I do a lot of that, investments, both in private equity, venture capital, and also buying and selling of shares, but not as a trader, but as an investor mostly. The difference is that a trader will trade for margins. An investor will buy for value. So you do an analysis of the company. When I'm buying even one share, I am buying the entire company in my mind. I always ask myself, if I'm to buy this company, not a share, would I buy it? Before I buy the share, that's the question I first get to have an answer on. So, what you need to do when you are evaluating which investment in a passive manner to invest in, first of all, there are very many categories. Fixed income, there are shares. Fixed income are like bonds, treasury bills, and etc., where you are guaranteed. But everything that you are guaranteed also comes with a very retro margin or very retro yield, because you are risk averse. So being risk averse means you take the gain equivalent to a risk averse person. When you have a high appetite of risk, when the reward comes, you also get rewarded adequately, in commensurate to your risk. But what I look for myself in investments across large T-bills, shares, private equity, number one thing you have to always think about is liquidity. When you are buying land, you are buying shares, you are buying bonds, when you need the money, how soon can you get it? You know, maybe some of you can relate. This Kenya is full of people full of wealth. Wealth, niko na shamba ya eka 200, 200 acres, 2,000 acres, niko na hii. Okay, fine. You told me how much it's worth. When can you get it? When can you get it? Liquidity is always a very critical thing. And me, I approach life in terms of, I also need money. Because I don't think you are investing money for the next 200 years. You are investing money to help you have a good life continuously. So if you can't liquidate your money, then you have to think about it, liquidity. How soon can you liquidate that asset you are investing in? Secondly, always do some analysis about return on equity, return on investments, return on assets, depending. Na mimi nikiangalia hapa hii hall, I don't need to go into details on that. There is something else I always look for in the NSC. I can't buy a share before I look at it, called PE ratio. PE ratio means price over earning per share. So earning per share is what? When the company announces year profits, they divide their profit by the number of shares they have. So what they get is earning for every share. So PE measures how the company is trading in the market, that is the NSC, divided by its earnings. You are able to see if the company can pay dividend the entire amount of money, how long would it take me to recover my money? Currently in the NSC, to the best of my ability, the company with the lowest PE, the lower the better. Because the lower shows the least possible time you can get back your money if you have to rely on net profits. If I buy this company, the net profit per year, how soon can I return my money? So it measures a period, PE ratio. I'm just highlighting so that you also go do your own research. Risk profile, as you invest, look at how risky a thing is. Don't delegate some of these things. You know, many times in investments, you want to, you have an investment advisor. These things, you can do them by yourself. It is your money. Remember that all the time. Even after listening to your financial advisor, it's not their money. It is your money. And you realize you don't need so much time to learn. You can actually do your basic analysis using with very little time. Evaluate the company's fundamentals. This is for shares. Fundamentals means look at which sector are they playing in. For example, now, look at areas that are growing, sectors. So by the time you even zero in on a company, Where are they zero grazing? Is it a bank? Is it an IT company? Is it an agricultural-based company? So that by the time you decide, you understand why. For example, if I'm to buy any agricultural company in Kenya, the shares, I will never buy for the profit they make. I will only buy for the asset they hold. And I will only then buy if there is a way I can buy so many shares and cause them to sell land and distribute the money. Because you realize Kapchorwa Tea is one of the listed companies, Rimuru Tea, you get Williamson Tea, rich in assets in terms of land. But their profits are always like this. Because agriculture all the time, agriculture is never like this. You make money this time because weather was good, next year you bump again downwards. So always do that math. If you're doing a company for you to get in substantially, cause the company to liquidate some assets, to pay off a special dividend, it's called stripping of assets. Then I would buy a company rich in assets, but thin in revenue. But in our capital markets now, if you're buying a company or shares, always look for a company making good revenues, but also distributing that revenue to shareholders. So that you look at the fundamentals in that scenario. Their corporate governance, the sector they are based in, how dominant are they in that sector, how much profit do they make, do they have a room to expand beyond the Kenyan market, and such and forth. Maybe lastly, the other thing is timing. And again, I'm going back. This is not for anyone to do for you. Because I can talk here, then somebody asks me, which share can I buy? I can't tell you. Because it's your work to do that. Timing means this. It does not take a lot of time. That's why I'm saying this. I'm not talking about this in bad faith. How does the global economy perform from the US market? After how many years do we have a reset of the US economy? After how many years do we have a reset in the Kenyan economy? So that we know when you are likely to expect a bump, you know when you are likely to expect a growth, when the market is supposed to be bearish, bullish. It does not take so much time. Even Kenya now, you can check when did we have a dip, when did we have a bullish market. Mostly they go hard together, US, Kenya, and globally. It will not take you so much time. Timing. When the market is bullish, it's not a coincidence that the Dow Jones in the US is trading in its all-time high, and the Kenyan market is bullish, South African market is bullish. It's not a coincidence. There is something around something you can do on analysis to put in your money where you need to get it. Lastly, diversify beyond Kenya, both in business and also investments. In business, we seem stuck with the market we already know. My Rotary Club members are the ones, I am building a product with them in mind. No. Build with the global market in mind. Internet came to help all of us, not some of us. So that you are able to open up your mind. And the limitation, most of it is the one you've put in yourself. There are people currently selling very many things anywhere else in the world. So when you look at a product, look at it in that manner. Also in terms of investments. NSE is just one of the markets in the world. There is no barrier to invest in New York, in South Korea, in JSC, in NGX, that is Nigeria. There is no barrier per se. Study, see where the opportunities are, so that by the time you put in your shilling like this, your calculated return will come in almost precisely. Because you are not doing guesswork. You have engaged your mind, you've used data. Thank you very much.